Welcome to Life Decoded. Today I am joined by Katrina Nguyen, and she is a speaker, author, nonprofit leader, and a physician, all in one with a story that we need to hear. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you very much, Mo, for having me on your show.
So I find it so very interesting because you came to the USA in 1975 by a boat.
Yes.
So how did that go? How did you end up there? What is the story around your change of your countries?
Mm-hmm. I was born in Vietnam, and that was February 22nd of 1974. My father his career in Vietnam was a fisherman, and he had fishing boats. And for us, after the end of the war, in April 30th, 1975, many things have happened before that. That basically many Vietnamese people, including my family, knew at some point we had to decide to either stay or leave. And our only way to escape, because my dad and my parents' family were poor and had no connections to the U.S. military to be able to be flown out of the country. So my dad made the courageous decision that he would use his fishing boat and put all my mom, and I was the youngest of 8 at the time, on the fishing boat and take us out to sea and escape. Hopefully we'll survive, but we knew that if we stayed, we would be persecuted and not be able to stay and be alive. So that was our only chance. And
wow.
So that's kind of the story of why it happened. It takes courage, and I think as we got older, we understood the courage it took. We took things for granted as a child, but when we tell the stories to other people, they said, "Wow, it's amazing."
Like I did
Yeah.
And you also told me that you nearly died twice on that journey. What did happen, if I may ask?
So after my dad took us out on a boat, at one point, because it's a small fishing boat, so it was going to fall apart, and if we had to decide, like, are we going to get rescued? If we do get a chance, do we abandon the boat? So there was kind of a flat of almost 5,000 people that we found on our journey on my dad's fishing boat. And we knew that we had to, give up all the supplies, which wasn't many, on his boat, and leave it behind and get on the flat with other people. And, the only thing that he was able to take was, some bags of noodles and water, and bring it along with, his wife and 8 kids. And my oldest brother was like 17 or 18, and I was 14 months old. So we got on there, and eventually the people on the barge, we were rescued by a humanitarian merchant ship, and brought there from the merchant ship, brought to the Philippines. And eventually from the Philippines, after about 5 days, we were flown to Guam at the refugee camp in Guam. So we were among what's called the boat people of 1975. In terms of my near-death experience, one is when I was transferred from the flat with the over 5,000 people to the humanitarian ship. The transfer, somebody almost forgot to catch me by the leg.
No.
And I nearly fell into the ocean, which is the fate of many, many people, and especially toddlers and babies that were crushed, under the crowd, or fell into the ocean, or died of starvation. But for me, luckily, I was saved because of the luck of being caught in the transfer. That was the first, what I refer to as a near-death experience. It's a different definition, not like most people think of near-death. The second time was I was in the refugee camp, and I had an infection in the head and neck area that required surgery under anesthesia. And the physicians told my parents that they weren't sure if I would survive. And so they actually began looking for a burial site just in case I didn't. And I made it through the surgery, and eventually, after about a year and a half, my family left Guam and were sponsored by Catholic Charities, and stayed in Louisiana area for a couple of years before we moved to California. Yeah. So those are my two, what I refer to as near-death experience. And I didn't know about it until I grew up, and people would refer to me as is the girl that nearly died in Guam. And I asked my parents, what do you mean I nearly died? So that's how I heard about the story and included it in my first book, Live to Give.
Wow. And since then, you've been following the American dream pretty much, right?
Yes.
But
yes.
before we come to that, what do you think of your father for doing this decision now in hindsight after everything is done? Was it the right decision, or what is your perspective on it? I would love to hear that.
So my father actually passed away April 2nd of 2018. And on his tombstone, I created this word, this phrase, and it says, "A man of few words, his love spoke volumes." And that's my father. My father is not one that talks a lot, but he thinks through things and he makes plans and he follows through and he keeps his vows and his commitments. And so, I think that the process of planning out the journey, he had to think about the plus and minus, and either way, it was a difficult decision. If he stayed with the kids and something happened, he would still feel very responsible for their life or death. And if he took them out, the same thing. But the risk I think he took, it wasn't like he just sent people out or like left them behind to die. If we all made it or we all died together. And we all made it, we all lived together, But I am, as I grew up, so proud that he had that courage, to take that risk and know that he was responsible to protect us, regardless what happened. Many people that stayed behind, risks like murder, rape, robbery, persecution, imprisonment. So the choice was not, extreme, like, oh gosh, you'll live in wealth or live in poverty. It was really life or death. Yes.
Wow. What a story. Thank you so much for sharing it. And I'm sorry that you had to go through all of that, you and your family. Wow. 14 months old. And since then, a lot has happened. I mean, in that time, you have become an author, a speaker, and so on, and a doctor as well. So how did you come to all of those careers and to your first book, The Life to Live to Give?
Yes. So actually, the first book here, Live to Give, an inspirational memoir about freedom, faith, and selflessness. I published that with Hilton Publishing December 1st of 2020. And it was something I worked on for about 10 years. I would write stories and chapters and just things anytime I was inspired.
Okay.
And it really is a journey of where I was born, how I grew up, and what I shared so far about escaping communist Vietnam and finding freedom in America and embracing the opportunities presented to me. And, one thing I will say is my parents, eventually with 10 children, they never told us what to do or how to think or what to say. They taught us, just embrace the opportunity and the freedom that is given here and the risk that my father and mother took to give us that chance. And so all of us, when we chose our careers and what we did in life, it was really about that. We do different things. Two of my brothers are Catholic priests, one for 30 years, the other for 40 years. And then myself, I'm the only physician in the family. I have a sister who's a dentist, one who's a dental hygienist, several in engineering and accounting, human resources, and business. But they allowed us to pursue our passion and never told us you have to be this or that. So for me, going down the path of pursuing work as a physician, I enjoyed science back in junior high school, and many mentorships that led me to medicine, telling me to go volunteer at the hospital, learn from other doctors and nurses what their life is like, what the impact of helping people is like. And then in college, I worked in the research lab with a pathologist who's an MD, PhD, and he told me about the bedside, interactions and the impact and the lives that you can change. And if you wanted to do research, you can as a physician. You don't have to go down the PhD route if you want to do the MD route. So that's what led me to pursue medicine, and then did research along the way. And then in the past 12, 13 years, my focus is on just clinical care. But that's what happened, just being around the right mentors. In my book, Live to Give, I share the story of 4 mentors, and 2 of whom had passed away. Actually, my very first mentor is Lucille Mello. She passed away September 21st of 2024. And she was the first one that gave me my very first job at the fire department at 14 years old. So I knew her when I was 14 and she was 45. And now she passed away at 80. But that long-term relationship that you embrace, because you know the quality of our relationship and what they brought to you, in your life, and that I wouldn't be here without that first person that believed in me at 14. Yes.
Wow. I really am for a loss of words right now. So the nearest thing I would love to talk to you about is your work as a physician. You are specialized for kids. Does this mean that you primarily work with kids, or
pediatric gastro? Yes, a specialist for kids with gut, intestine, liver disease, nutrition, growth, development. Yeah. So I finished medical school in 2002. And I did a residency in Missouri for 4 years in internal medicine and pediatrics. So it's 2 specialties in 4 years. Then after that, from 2006 to 2009, I did a fellowship in pediatric gastroenterology in Brooklyn, New York. And then I practiced in Georgia for almost 4 years in Augusta. And at that time, I was doing research and also clinical care for patients. But since 2013, my focus has been just clinical care. In 2020, I focused with a Catholic health group, telehealth group called My Catholic Doctor. And I primarily do telemedicine now for the past 5 years. For pediatric GI, procedures are included, but since the end of 2021, I stopped doing procedures, and I just focused on meeting people where they're at. And I'm licensed in 7 states. And lots of people outside of Illinois, where I reside, they will reach out and need help and answers and counseling. And weight management is very easily done by just counseling, through telehealth.
Really?
Yes. And I think that you can model motivation, certainly in person, and teach skills. But when it comes to health and wellness, especially when it comes to weight management for children, it's a preventive opportunity, but an opportunity to assess motivational interviewing, and saying, where are you at? What do you want? What are your goals? And how can I help you get there? Because as a physician, I've learned in the last 2 decades is that unless the patient is motivated and the doctor can assess the patient's motivation for change in anything, it's difficult to make that change. We can talk for hours, but the change has to start here with the patient. What do they want, and how do they envision their life in 10, 20 years? Happiness, joy, traveling, spend with their family, or spend in the hospital. So that's how I look at the opportunity for telehealth in that way. I can reach more people, and just by the click of a button on the computer, we're here, just like you and I right now, right?
Yeah, especially the same, yeah. Change starts in the heart. That is just beautiful. I think I will put the title there. Thank you for that phrase. No, but everything you just told me, it all represents this quote of your first book, Live to Give. It's just you're constantly helping everybody,
yes.
Especially when you work with kids, of course, and for most people, their kids are everything. They would value their life over their own. And then we have situations like COVID or other extreme situations when there is big uncertainty everywhere. And I think that you, as someone who works with these kids, the golden future, you have a lot more pressure, right? Than the big ones. Are there some stories that that show that, or what is your
Yeah,
experience?
my experience, as you mentioned, during COVID, for instance, one of the things we learned is isolation will increase anxiety and stress and mental health challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're isolated from your peers and you don't get to go to school with them and you miss your friends, when all you know is school, like, by Zoom, or your
Mm-hmm.
parents are struggling to work and also teach you, with school and keeping up at home. Isolation disrupts, the lives of many people and affects mental health. And so my work in weight management and my obesity intervention program, my nonprofit is called Faithful to Fitness, which I established in November of 2014. What it allowed is it encouraged people to get back together in the middle of COVID. In August of 2020, I still had a 5K event, running and walking together. And
Mm.
we honored measures of isolation in the public, but we still got together and walked 3 miles and did an event, which at that time, most organizations canceled their events. But I said, I'm not going to. Even if 100 people versus 300 show up, it's still an opportunity to get together, to motivate each other. And be together, is part of motivation, part of creating happiness and joy. Exercise is also very important to increase joy. Naturally, your body, when you exercise, you stimulate joyful hormones in your brain. And that's part of motivation. Yeah.
Do you think that because every single country had those quarantines and everybody needed to stay at home, do you think this was an error, that this was a fault, that nobody should have done that
I think
for the
that,
periods?
there were ways that, we could be better. I think we can always learn from the past, that the impact of isolation and limiting education, for children and disrupting families so extremely. Because, for me as a physician, there are things that I did that were similar to other doctors, but are caring for ourselves and caring our families. It was just prudence, right? But there was no reason to keep the kids at home or keeping people out of church. Those are things for me as a faith-based doctor. I just longed during that time. Can I just get back to church with people, because everybody else was shopping, right? Grocery
Yeah.
shopping and everything. Why can't we get together in the school and in the churches? Yeah.
Okay, so then you wrote a second book,
Yes.
Confidence to
The
Give.
confidence of yes.
Yeah. What is that about?
So the confidence of yes is with 11 other women, and it became an international bestseller in January of 23 when we launched it. It is a book where each of the women, we wrote about why and how we said yes to what we do. And much of what you and I talk about today. So we had a variety of, different backgrounds. For example, one of my friends in there is Dr. Lale Talabian. She's a PhD cancer biologist. And she escaped the reign of terrorism for her in Iran and the revolution. So her story is that, but she went there and her father passed away when she was a teenager from cancer. And so her motivation was that she always wanted to be a cancer biologist. And she became a cancer biologist, and now she's practicing and providing nutrition-based therapy through telehealth for patients to prevent and also maintain a healing journey after cancer treatments, after they failed to respond or had recurrence of cancer, and they didn't qualify for treatments and current protocols again. So that's an example. But there are also personal challenges that women overcame through divorce, separation, suffering tragedies, abuse, for instance, and how they overcame that. And they did not look at themselves as a victim, but using the experience to find the help, not only for themselves, but for their children. And so I learned from working with other women how, they were victorious in overcoming adversity, and also using their adversity to teach other people to be empowered as well.
And this is exactly where I wanted to go next, because you're also not only helping people or kids, but also especially women when facing, for instance, mediocrity. And this is
Mm-hmm.
another book that she also wrote with multiple other persons, Overcoming Mediocrity, Epic Women.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
This
what
that. Mhm.
what is the main problem and how do we fix it?
So in overcoming mediocrity, I'm one of 17 women. My
Mm-hmm.
chapter in that is it is about giving like a blueprint on how I created my nonprofit for childhood obesity. And, for my message, for instance, I always say that, as a Christian, God did not create us to be perfect or to be mediocre. He wants us to really maximize our talents and our time and our treasure here on earth to make a difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can be successful and wealthy and earn, 6 figures or more, don't think about what can you do for yourself, but how can we help other people? And so that's really my message. And I share stories, for instance, like the children that I help in my nonprofit work, how I empowered them to say that it's not the doctor that's going to change you. It's you're going to say, I'm going to change. And when I change, I will help other people to the secret. The secret is how I motivate myself and say, I'm going to make one change at a time. Everything that we do in life can be overwhelming when we think of big goals and too many things to do to get to that goal. But if we break it down one task at a time, we're going to get there. An example, it's, for instance, the kids I help, they may say, I don't want to change my diet or stop drinking sodas and sugary beverages and also exercise 60 minutes 3 times a week, or cut my portions or to stop watching TV or using my
Mm-hmm.
phone. But I said, and for the adults, I said, oh, I don't want to quit smoking or drinking alcohol or eating less or stop eating fast food. But I said, what if you stop one thing? Like I helped one woman in 2000, between 2002 to 2006, when I was in residency, a 40-year-old woman who had her first heart attack and had a stent placed in the hospital. She came to me as a new patient and she said, help me. She was 386 pounds. And after 3 years, I helped her lose 186 pounds without surgery, without medications, all because she was motivated to make one change at a time, starting with stopping smoking. And then after that,
Mm-hmm.
she started to change her diet and exercise. So I applied the same motivation I give her. And I helped the kids. I said, why don't you start with stopping sugary beverages? And then if you don't exercise 3 times a week, start with once a week, then twice a
Mm-hmm.
week, then 3 times a week. And then you think about the food that you eat, right? Can you eat less of it? Nobody will say, don't eat any of this. But if you make small changes, you can do it. And that's part of the message of overcoming mediocrity for my chapter in the book.
Yeah, now that I think about it, it makes complete sense, because every time I start something, it is pretty much a switch, so it's only on or off.
Uh-huh.
For instance, right now we are doing a challenge again at Life Dakota. So it's always a fitness challenge. Last time it was 30 days of
Uh-huh.
100 burpees a day for every single day. And I've never done burpees for more than one day in my life. So it is never with only once a week, because when I tried that, but soon I started to tap into the trap to think, I know I could maybe do 2 days a week at least, so why am I here just doing one? But
Uh-huh.
before, for 3 months straight, I didn't do anything.
Uh-huh.
So it's very hard for me, and I think for some people out there as well, to see the pride or really the big future ahead, the big goal that this will all turn into one day,
Uh-huh.
when this day comes and you are only one day in a week there. So normally I would go there, then say, nah, I can do this more often. And the next
Yeah.
week I would go 5 times, and the next week I wouldn't go anymore. So
Uh-huh.
that was always pretty much the pattern with me. So what would you tell people that are maybe like-minded like me in that regard?
I think that it's more important to be consistent and reach set reasonable goals, right? If don't look at what other people are doing and don't look at, oh, I have to be like that person or have that same goal, because you know your body best, you know your mind best.
Mm,
And so for me, I've never ever done more than 3 times a week of exercise because I know if I do more than that, I may be injuring myself.
okay.
And then I would say in the 3 times a week that I would do, I would increase the time, 15 minutes after dinner, 30 minutes after dinner, or I may do during that 3 times a week. I might do something in the morning. If I'm free in the morning, I get up and I go out and I do my walk right away. Or when I get home from work, instead of, sitting down or watching TV, I may have a dinner and then go walking 30 minutes. But I give myself a day break in between. And I think that's important. But sometimes people will say to me, oh, you should go to the gym every day. I'm more of an outdoor person. I enjoy nature. So I
Yeah.
know that some people, like even my husband, he likes going to the gym and that's how he would exercise. But for me, I like to be in nature and I do me. I do what works for me because it helps my mind to relax and to think and have the silence. And the silence is important to me, not to be always around other people. Yeah.
So there is, of course, a group who is struggling with weight loss. And on the other hand, there is a small group, but they exist, I know, that are struggling with weight gain. And
Mhm.
actually, I'm one of those persons. And for a very, very long time, or at least today, I will say it is impossible for me to gain weight. So I
Uh-huh.
know it is not impossible, but it's nearly impossible, not practical at all, to eat every day like my 5,000 calories to get it all done. And I'm 21 now. So everybody
Uh-huh.
told me with 21, you will get fat with the things I eat in a day. And I don't at the moment. And that's pretty much now the point where I realize maybe this is a problem.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, because you have a lot of experience in this topic, I just wanted to ask you, is it even possible to have this condition to not gain weight, or is that just a paradox and out there, just a mythus?
For my patients and also within my family, there are people my nieces, my sisters who eat, we sit and eat with them. It's like, wow, you're eating so much more than I do, but you barely didn't gain weight. And I think that part of that is genetics or metabolism or
Mm,
the kind of food that we eat. It may look like they're eating a lot, but the quality of the food may also impact it. For instance, somebody who eats like lots of fiber and like lots of salads and fruits and stuff, they may look like they're eating a lot, but the type of food that they're eating is not high protein, right? And the fiber will fill them up and they will last longer and feel more full. And they digest the food because of the fiber. So that's a part of the issue.
mm-hmm,
Probiotics, for instance, which like the good bacteria in your gut will be favored because of the fiber that we consume, and that also help with digestion, and so that plays a role. Whereas for me, for instance, when I was in college and even in medical school, and probably even before the last 10 years, I was not good about eating a lot of protein. And protein is so important in building muscle and sustain healthy weight gain. So that's what I try to focus on. I'm not a big person that eats meat, but I find other ways to get protein, healthy protein through beans, through nuts, for instance, example. And many vegetables that have protein too, like squashes, for instance, is an
mm-hmm.
example. But I think that we have to not look at just calories, but the quality of the calories and the content of protein that we're consuming. For my patients who and the kids in my nonprofit who struggle with excessive weight gain and they're trying to lose it, I encourage a lot of fiber and more water before they eat a big meal.
Mm,
And after they eat, to do the 15, 20-minute walk to help them digest and use the metabolism that's happening, the increased metabolism. As you're eating, your energy is being used to break it down. Use that when you exercise to mobilize the insulin that will help improve blood sugar, which is happening right after you eat. So it depends on, it's very individualized, but protein versus fiber, depending on your goal.
So very short answer, it is possible.
It's possible. It's possible. Yep. For the
Okay.
longest time. Yeah. Before I went to, I would say before I finished medical school, I struggled to get above 100 pounds.
Yeah, that is my problem at the moment too, and I'm eating so much candy over here. So we are really talking for a very long time. 1 bag a day. It got better now over the last 3 months, but there was really a time where I ate one of those bags a day, and still there was, of course, there was a health impact, but there was no weight gain. I really felt sore and all of that, and I was always grumpy. But other than that, the only thing why I did that, it didn't happen. So I was always also a bit trying to hide behind this conclusion that I'm just not built to build muscle, or I just can't gain weight, because of course then I don't need to do hard work for it. So that is why we have the challenge right now. For the next 90 days, I'm going onto the proteins and everything. So thank you for mentioning that again. So I feel very good about the next 82 days that are coming now. And So
if you're not allergic to nuts, buy yourself some nuts.
I am.
And then the other thing is like eggs, actually, hard-boiled eggs. And that's an easy snack that you can have 2 a day. So maybe 1 in the morning and 1 midday, with your lunch. But those are kind of small things that I suggest to people. Yeah.
I will make me some right now. So. Thank you so much for your time. It was really, really interesting and eye-opening now in the end as well. Thank you so much for sharing your story and also your whole way of living. I really think from this episode, a lot of us got very inspired. And so thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where can people go if they want to know more about you, want to buy your book, or just follow you on Instagram?
Yes, I have a website that's very easy. It's M like Mary, D like dog, Katrina.com. There you'll find more about my work as a physician, how to connect with me if you're 21 and under. I can see children for pediatric GI and also weight management and other things. And all 3 of my books are available for purchase there. I also do speaking engagements, both live and podcast events. And so people can book me through there. And then my nonprofit work, Faithful to Fitness, and the links on there. Many previous podcast interviews, not all, but many are there for people to learn more on an extended level about what I do and how I can make an impact for them and their community.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.